All right, my friends. Let's see here. Where is the camera option? Here we go. Here we go. It's my Spotify playlist. Okay. Hello, squad. Thank you for tuning in today. As you know, I don't know how exciting or engaging today's stream's gonna be, but Will and I like to talk a lot about D&D and DM prepping, and coincidentally, I found myself with a bit of a feel a little stuck for this upcoming session I have on Wednesday. And there's a lot of us who like D&D. What if we threw our heads together and thought about something interesting for the players, something exciting? So what I'll do is, I don't know how long this stream will last, maybe 30 minutes to an hour, I don't know. And I've never done anything like this before. So, we'll take this, we'll work with it, and we'll see if we want to do something like this in the future. But the top level conversation about this is this is a combat session that is being prepped for my campaign of players. What I'll do is I'll give you kind of the setting, what's kind of leading up to this combat encounter. I'll give you some information about the party, and I'll also share some things that I typically think about whenever I prep a D&D session to try to make it as engaging and fun as possible. So having said that, this is a group of players who have been playing for, this campaign's been going for about, I guess about 2 years now, 2.5 years, so it's been going for a while. And it's just a good group of people. It's a lot of fun. So let me grab the premise of what I wrote before. Also grab my YouTube chat here so I can actually see it. You're hitting your room mic on top. Oh, thank you for that. Let's fix that. Got it. I think that should fix it. Sorry for all of that. The window I had open, I couldn't actually see any of the chat. So that should fix it, though. The joys of streaming, right? Okay. So let's talk what's happening here. So this is a D&D combat scenario. Let's bring this text up a bit. And, maybe there's a fancier way to do all this, but, this is how we'll do it. So let's talk about what the setting and theme is for this campaign. So in general, this is a high fantasy group of players. Think about, if you haven't played a lot of D&D, typically when we talk about settings, there's a lot of different options, from like sci-fi to steampunk to political intrigue, what have you. And this is like a pretty typical, I would say actually it's more of like a mix of high fantasy, which you can think of to be kind of like Lord of the Rings, with a little bit of political intrigue mixed in it. So mostly high fantasy, 6 players at the table. The players are, I think, level 9, I'm pretty sure. And they've been playing for, it's been about 2.5 years, in session every other week. So this is session maybe 45-ish. I can't remember. And the premise, let's see, let's fix the color here. And you guys can give me any feedback on like font and stuff. I'm just trying to make all this as readable as possible, So, they're in this town. It is, it's like one of the main towns, so to speak. And many people have come to this town for like a massive festival that's occurring. It's like a once in a year festival called the Ages Festival. And essentially, it's one of those like kind of like stereotypical, like the world ended 1,000 years ago, and now once a year we all throw this big party to remember like our resilience and perseverance, and there's a lot more like fluff to it, but you get the idea, right?
Well, in this town, while this massive festival is happening, there are the party is basically approached by the royal guard and asked to investigate some missing items. There are items that have been missing that are typically related to a couple of things. Basically what are called portal rings, which are basically like there's 10 different versions of this, but you know, it's basically like a teleportation device that's typically created in the Artificer's Academy. So some of the components of that are missing. And then some of this is such like nerd talk, right? We're like throwing around so many different like words casually, but you know, you guys will get me here. Also missing are resonators, which are tied to the arcane wards around the city that protect the city. So giving like the TLDR of that, this is the city of Rhone. Think of it like capital city, massive city. The mission is the party has, can I actually not zoom down on this thing? Let's see. We'll zoom in here in a sec. There we go. Let's bring it up like that. Okay. So the mission is the party has been asked to investigate missing components and items from across the city. And these are components related to portal rings and components related to resonators that allow the arcane wards around the city to function. These wards protect the city. So where this has all taken them so far is they've gone to the Arcane Academy, which is like the main like artificer place. They actually killed the engineer, the chief engineer, who was like this Eldritch-esque like dude, had like done experiments on himself kind of thing. And long story short, now that I've rambled for a while, where this has currently taken them is to the Obsidian Ring. Let's fix where this, there we go. And the Obsidian Ring is basically a thieves guild. It has, it's subterranean, 5 levels, each level with more illicit items than the one before. So they're currently on level 5, or actually currently on level 4, and have been navigating basically what is essentially like a maze, trying to travel through. All that to say, this Wednesday, they're going to make it to the final level, the 5th level, where they will encounter something. They are looking for these missing items. They're trying to figure out who's been stealing them and for what purpose. And is there some kind of connection of like a greater plot for foiling the festival or affecting the festival in some negative way? So I wrote objective or mission up there, but more specific objective, find the missing components and or identify who is behind stealing, trafficking, trading them, and what it has to do with the Aegis Festival or Rhone as a whole. So this is where you guys come in. So let me talk a little bit about kind of where my what I was thinking from the get-go and why I don't like it. My approach to D&D is I typically really enjoy, I'm a bit too much of a hipster to do like the tried and true, like done before thing. So like where my gut or where I would naturally go to is what's at the bottom of the 5th level. I would presume like a bunch of roguish characters, right? Like maybe the leader of the Thieves Guild who, you know, gives sort of like the cliche, like, you know, you'll never take these items back. You know, and they fight like the leader of the Thieves Guild. But I was kind of like, that's a little boring, right? I mean, the party's been playing for 2.5 years. You know, surely there's like a more interesting approach to this. And something that Will and I have talked about before too is, you know, when it comes to like effective D&D sessions, you don't have to create something from scratch. Sometimes you just need enough of a spin on it to make it interesting, intriguing in some way. So like potential ideas here. Rogue enemies, leader of the Obsidian Ring, maybe. Another idea I had were like a rich noble who has been bankrolling this kind of stuff. Another idea would be like the theme of this arc, which has been like kind of like eldritch esque, I guess. Previously they went down into like some nearby mines, and it was very much like aberrations and you know, mind controlling and things like that. And there is essentially like this theme of the reason they had to fight and kill the leader of the academy was the person had basically gone insane. So we could use the Eldritch theme in some way. Notice level 9, and this has big feelings. Are you planning on milestoning them up to 10? I think so. I think it would make sense either to level them here or probably like around here, I would guess. And typically when I do, I mean, this is basically milestone XP in general, but I typically try to tie them leveling up with some mechanism in the game that actually levels them. So in the other campaign, another group of people that I play with, they just hit level 3, and it's because they literally freed a god who had been in prison, who was like, boom, level 3. So I typically try to do some kind of like story reason for why they leveled up, rather than like, hey, good job everybody, and you're level 3, which is fine. I just don't typically do that. Okay, so James, interesting insight. The monster is called an Oobleck. It could be cool. It's an ooze that sends tendrils out into the city that takes on human shapes. They fought one already, and they fought one in that nearby mine as they were like figuring out like there's something like really wild and crazy happening here. Now, something interesting that you mentioned that gives me kind of an idea here is in the mines, there weren't any miner bodies, and they were trying to figure out like, where are the miners? Well, they found at the center of the mine was this massive Oobleck who was basically taking the bodies and like into itself, and was like projecting very goo-like, not really so much like doppelgangers, but like for the sake of combat, one of the mechanics was the Ooblong or Oobleck, whatever it's called, would do an attack and then would create like a doppelganger or like a simulacrum that they would have to fight while also fighting it. So it's not that, so it hasn't not been utilized in some way, but it would be interesting maybe if there was some kind of spin on that or twist on that. Might be too close to what Matt did in Dressar though. Possibly. In Dressar though, it was actual people who were being, I guess it was actually, what was her name? Emoth, who was being transformed by the Shade Mother, and same with Duggar too. So there's room to make it different enough where it's not necessarily that, I guess. Buck Potter said, how about the Thieves Guild is connected to a mage council of the city who are working for Asmodeus or another dark horror, big bad evil guy? Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Asmodeus was basically the central, or rather like a cult of Asmodeus was a central force from like the previous arc that they finished. So I probably wouldn't bring in Asmodeus, but I am very much interested in like a dark horror evil, like kind of what I was thinking about was like, why are the portal rings, why are the portal ring components missing? And what I was playing around in my head was this idea that these people stealing these components are like building like a massive like portal-esque thing underneath the city to like summon in like a literal massive gargantuan monstrosity from, you know, I don't know. But that's I think that's a great angle that I've been thinking about. If you want, use PC character sheets, do multi-class rogue builds for NPC enemies. Ooh. That's interesting. I've actually never done that before. It feels amazing to silvery barbs or players. Oh man, I don't know if I'm that mean. And it makes for challenging combat. I love that. I love combat where players have to make an active decision. I had an encounter earlier. It was a homebrew on evasion, where instead of taking, I think it's half damage or no damage, it was if the attack roll beats your AC, if it like matched your AC but it didn't beat it by more than like 5, the enemy combatant could use its reaction to redirect the attack to someone within 5 feet. And so it got into the situation where it was like the final round where the players like were freaking out trying to finish off this dude, but all that was left was like the massive barbarian who was swinging to try to finish him and kept getting redirected to the other nearby people. So I really like using player abilities in some ways that make them have to think about how they're going to approach this. Give the main baddie a threshold where they try to escape. Ooh, you can wrap the combat with a pass-fail chase. I'm not very good at chase sequences, I can tell you that. I'm a huge fan of using player abilities against my party, force them to be smart. Hey, Latin God, good to see you, brother. Or sister, or whatever. Buck Potter, maybe do an angelic abomination. Okay. Let's do a little read-up on that. Oh, and let's also keep track of what do we have so far. So stream ideas, an eldritch, or maybe like a dark horror BBEG, or we'll just, for the sake of it, we'll just call it like maybe like a BBEG light. Maybe not the main villain, but maybe like a central force. Are components being used to summon, bring in this monstrosity or aberration? Using player abilities against my party, and more specifically, I love this idea, creating character sheets for the NPCs, which I really like too. Okay, let's come back to this. Where are we on the chat? Okay, an angelic abomination. What is this? Yeah, you'll have to tell me more about where you're coming with this, because there's a handful of ideas here, looks like. Here's a question. What would be, in terms of like deities or demigods, what would be a potential like dark horror demigod idea of like maybe this creature that they're wanting to summon or bring in or what have you? I've been playing with an idea where the BBEG has an ability where they put an effect on a player with a wisdom save, and on a fail, they, the player, trigger a legendary action radiating AoE in the player space to force the party to change up their plans and positioning on the fly. I like that idea. That's pretty interesting. Okay. Let's look at Eldritch demigods in D&D. What do we have? Let's see what we can find here. Okay. Tell me if we can see this. I think we can. So your paladin starts radiating electricity. Ooh, that does make sense. Ooh, okay. So hang on. Let's grab that detail. Failed saves, whatever it might be, can create a legendary action AoE from the NPC that forces them to re-engage their plan. i.e., paladin gets radiates electricity around them. Something like that would be interesting. Now, we should probably also let's look at some of these elder evils. We should probably also go into looking at what is how deadly do we want to make the encounter, and what exactly is the party makeup. So let's look at this thing and see what we got here. Okay, let me get this in a way you can see it. Everything's like zoomed in such a weird way. So this is apparently, I don't know if you guys ever check in GM Binder, by the way. This is a really cool place to find some just like genuinely cool homebrew ideas. I've taken inspiration from, which now that I said that, I feel like taking inspiration is such like a cliche word for stole. I don't mean it that way. I always give credit where I can. In fact, this is Robert J. Schwalb. But like my wife, for example, she's playing a druid that's actually kind of like a homebrew ranger class with like a druid flair to it. But that came from one of these great GM Binder documents. So highly recommend gmbinder.com. There's some really cool homebrew ideas. You do need to know it's not, most of it has not been play tested in any way. So you probably don't want to like just pick it up and give it to your players. You want to think about how it's going to engage and interact with your party. So, okay, let's take a look at this. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So this is the elder evils of the world. So let's see kind of what they created here, the ideas that they had here. This is elder evils that have been imprisoned by great heroes, deities, or other beings who fear their release, yet they're not so easily forgotten. Blah, 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 blah. Now, here's what's something that's really interesting about this, because I was trying to think about, it is a 2.5 year long campaign. And so we've been thinking about, you know, the grand narrative, the grand story. So I've been in the situation where I've kind of thought to myself, okay, would this be introducing like another echelon, like another hierarchy of, like you have the deities and then you have like the elder evils and they kind of compete against one another? Or is there a way to like tie the story together? Now, part of the story for this campaign is, there was basically a massive red dragon that was known as the Red Tyrant, that was so fearsome that the deities themselves, you know, basically worked to seal him away. So one potential story link I've been thinking about is, what if this dragon, in being sealed away, sort of like morphed and transformed and became this shadowy eldritch-esque creature, which I thought might kind of loop things together a little bit. Another option would be literally like there's the deities as we know it, and then there are like the elder evils. Not sure yet what I want to do with that. Anyway, so let's kind of look through some of these and see what would be interesting. And then from here, let's try to figure out, is there a way to create a combat encounter that fits the theme of the Rogues Guild and links somehow to this? And we won't spend long here because I think this is just a small detail about the actual combat session. So, geez, I looked upon the thing and I wept tears of blood, for I knew my land, my people, and my very world was dead. Bro, stuff like that is such I mean, when you say something like that in a session, especially with people who aren't like gamers, they haven't done a lot of like tabletop RPGs, it's moments like that when people like, they realize like, okay, this is kind of serious. This is kind of a big deal. Okay, incorporating the elder evils, blah, 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 blah. Let's see here. I've never read this, by the way, so I'm kind of just scanning through it with you all. Maybe an alternate plot. Okay. Signs of the apocalypse, blah, 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 blah. The blood moon. Okay, identifying signs. That could be interesting. Eerie weather, restless dead. Okay, twisted life, blah, 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 blah. We get it, we get it. Could there be something with like these rogues who have a kind of like a cultist spin to them? Then again, I feel like every encounter is either like undead cultists or like eldritch, elementals in some way. So I don't know how excited I am around that idea. Okay, let's see here. The Hulks of Zaretha. Pandorum, the Utter Annihilation. Interesting. The Leviathan. Ragnora, the Mother of Monsters. I like that. Sertrus, the Prince of Heretics. Zargon, the Returner. Caius, the Worm that Walks. Okay. This is more like kind of like thematically what some of these are like, and like their cultists, like how their cultists operate, which I don't even know if we're going to use cultists yet. This is the literal elder evil, Atropus. This is very in theme with the some of the text they've already gotten already. This might be getting too in the weeds on some of this stuff. You know? There's a lot of great details here, but this might be too in the weeds on... I think maybe in terms of like combat and counter, we just stick with designing it, and then this can just be kind of like the subtle backdrop for like why things are happening. But we could say that if we go back to this, we could land on bad guys' ultimate goal. Acquire enough stuff, components, to release, summon the Eldritch BBEG. We'll just call it that. May not actually be the BBEG, but for the sake of what we're talking about, we'll just say that's the goal, right? So what needs to happen in this session, okay? The party needs to either solve it, who stole it and why, or they need to find answers that lead them elsewhere. What would be the next thing, right? Would it be like I mentioned earlier, would it be like a powerful noble that they need to, learn more things about? You get the point. So that's like things that need to happen by the end of the combat. Going back to the combat, let's look at, there's another suggestion I saw that was pretty good. Just add a bagman. One of the higher ups did some kind of ritual to turn members into bagmans. Sorry if I'm spamming. I sit around and do D&D prep for my job. That's great. Your dragon soul can be leeching out and possessing, corrupting the big bad evil here. That way you have a through line to connect arcs in your story. Very interesting. I'm loving this. I'm currently starting a campaign where one of my players is playing Way of the Shadow Monk, and I'm working on a mini BBEG for that player. I gotta talk for a second. Monks are so excruciating to play with. I have one in one of my campaigns, and he just always keeps me guessing as to what he's going to do. Okay. So let's talk actual... Oh, can we scroll this thing down? I guess not. Let's talk bad guys. Get out of here. Bad guys. Okay? Let's talk interesting bad guys. What would make some interesting bad guys? Now, I think there always has to be like the focal baddie, like the main person of interest. POI, we'll call him. Who could this be? And then we'll call them henchmen or lackeys or, you know, etc. Right? So, potential actual baddies. Leader or the focal person. Leader of the Obsidian Ring, potentially. It could be a higher up noble, mage, what have you. Could be a literal demigod. I think the party's a little too low level for something like that, actually. They're level 9, right? But it could be like an image or a construct or something like that of an eldritch BBEG, right? It could be an aberration of some kind related to the BBEG. This would be like something roguish, something like that, right? So am I missing anything in terms of like potential focal, like person of interest, main focus? And then in terms of lackeys, we can have rogues and thieves. I think a little bit less. I mean, it's very on brand and very thematic. I don't know. I feel like rogues are kind of boring, though. They do a lot of damage and they hide and they, you know, attack from the shadows. And maybe I'm just not being creative enough in terms of like what these would look like. Could be that. And we'll say even like maybe like wizards too could be involved. Other lackeys could be, oh man, what was I just thinking? I lost my train of thought. Oh, cultists related to this BBEG, potentially. And then ways to make combat interesting. We said failed saves that we'll call them debuff, curse, affect players. We'll say affect the party. We'll say that. Okay, so let's break these things down to start. Swashbuckler, blade singer, henchman. I've done something like that earlier. So I would feel like I'd be redoing it, unfortunately. Enjoy the sesh, my friend. Hope everyone's having a good week. Thank you, Will. I appreciate that, brother. So let's just start with these three categories. Any ideas or suggestions for this? It would be a little weird. The reason I don't necessarily like this is they already killed the leader of the Arcane, the Artificer's Arcane Academy, to then also fight and kill the leader of the Obsidian Ring, the Rogues Guild. If I'm like a leader in this town, I'm like, why are all of my guild leaders like evil, right? So I feel like it gets a little clunky. I feel like maybe the leader of the Obsidian Ring, maybe they do encounter this person, and maybe this person has like a very interesting worldview that's like, you know, survival of the fittest, and you know, I provide a place where deals can get made, and you know, I don't see things as black and white, and what is your enemy is, you know, it's another deal occurring or something like that. I don't know. So I'm actually not too sold on this person being the baddie. If that makes sense. This could be interesting This could be interesting from like a it could lead to more investigation around the nobles of the city. Could be something like that, maybe. Don't know, honestly. Yeah, the town's not fully evil. There is quite a bit of they typically like a bit of intrigue. They like kind of like the long-winded. We're 20 sessions in, 20 is too long, like 10 sessions in, and we're trying to figure out what's happening in this city. I never saw Campaign 2, but Cobalt Soul be like, why is everyone evil? But yeah, there's, you know, there's some unhappiness in the city, right? I mean, I'm trying to make it as like normal as possible, how like there's a level of unrest. Okay, let's put a pin in this for a second. Let's see here. What is this book here? Okay. Here we go. Again, another friendly plug for the DM materials that are out there. This comes from what's this guy's name? Let me find this actually. I'm gonna feel bad if I can't source the person. This is from a Redditor. Oh, hi, Mark. He said, I made this as a spiritual successor to 3.5's Lords of Madness, with more late for you design principles. But yeah, this is the Book of Aberrations. So we might be able to find some interesting things in here. I like your suggestion. Where'd your text go? A noble that's bankrolling the Obsidian Ring, though. Give a plus to that. And we'll highlight this so that we can remember it. Okay. Let's go in here. Let's just kind of scroll through this and see what we come up with that thematically kind of fits. And I'm just going to kind of scroll through and just kind of see. Man, that's cool. Man, could they fight a beholder? That party hasn't fought a beholder yet. It'd be a little strange for them to encounter one. Maybe not a beholder. Keep going. No. Ooh, these are ugly. That's pretty cool. An overseer, maybe? Man, yeah, this would be a little bit... I'd have to bring this down quite a bit. Let's kind of just get out of the... let's get out of the Mind Flayer category, and let's get out of the Beholder category, because I don't think we're going to do either of those. Cloakers, they've already fought. Darkweaver's interesting. Okay, this is interesting. Arrows. Okay, let's make a note here. Let's bring this up just a little. Okay, Darrows, Dark Weavers. I don't think I can do an Elder Brain. No. Lumps? No. 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 What if... Is there anything about, like, a Mind Flayer that's pretending to be, like, a noble? I mean... No. The other thing that'd be kind of interesting would be, you know, going to the theme of, let's see here. The theme of the Obsidian Ring being this place of, like, illicit trades and, like, exotic animals. What if on this lower level there were some, like, really, not like a displacer beast, but, like, some exotic animals that would get, like, released for the sake of the combat? So, like, exotic beasts, and then maybe what if that led to, like, you know, you think a cage is going to be open, it's going to be another exotic beast, but it's actually like an aberration. I don't know. Keep flipping through here. Spellweaver? Could be interesting. Yeah, that's a good idea, Lori. I was thinking, like, less ones, like, living down there, and more like, you know, as you go deeper in the levels of the Obsidian Ring, this music's a little bit, it's a little bit intense for me right now. As you go, like, levels deeper, maybe, like, the things that you would go down there to find and buy would be more expensive and much more, you know, illicit. So what if, like, not just exotic beasts, but, like, not like human trafficking. I try to avoid, like, actual, like, things that could trigger my players or just be upsetting for my players. But what if in trying to summon this creature, certain people have actually, like, traveled to this Eldritch-esque world and have brought back people, and maybe that could be one of these Darrows. Combat pit is interesting. I like that. Is that all of them? Okay. The last one was the Spellweaver. Hmm. Maybe it could be like a single spellweaver. The Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of Aberrations, the Mind Witness. Okay, let's take a look. Let's take a look. Is that in here? Mind Witness. No. Yep. Okay. Okay, let's see here. They are psionic hubs, amplifying and protecting any information conveyed to them. Okay. Okay. So here's what would be kind of interesting, just in terms of like, I think fun sessions are like taking small things that people are expecting and then just like flipping it a little bit. So they're currently on the 4th level. What if on the 4th level they come across exotic beasts and creatures of different kinds? And then once they get to the 5th level, it's the same like cages or like holding cells or whatever. And the players think that it's more of those creatures, but then when it gets like opened up or released, it's actually like this. I don't know if that would be interesting or not, but sometimes I have ideas and I'm like, maybe not. This is interesting. Okay, let's write that one down. Put a question mark on it. Let's see here. Exotic beasts, 5e. Just some Reddit ideas for exotic beasts. There you go. Random Pinterest. A rock. Fire kitty. There's some interesting things on here, I guess. Okay. I have to think on some of this stuff. Let's go back to the Spellweaver. I'm pretty interested by the Spellweaver. What if the Spellweaver is a noble within the city? Let's see. Orphans of an ancient empire that once sought to overthrow its gods. Spellweavers possess an easy and innate mastery of magic unseen anywhere. Okay. This would give me an opportunity to cast silvery barbs. You know, to like really piss off my players. This stuff's never really that interesting to me because I typically homebrew some of this stuff anyway. Wall of Fire is interesting. Let's try, for now, version 1. Bring it down here. Version 1. Okay. For version 1, this Spellweaver, who is a noble town bankrolling the Obsidian Ring, and is currently here to inspect like the stolen components. Now, I do need to think this through a little bit. I need to think about the Rogues Guild leader, like making them interesting enough where it's not like weird, where it's not like, hey, you had like this super evil dude like working, and you know, I don't know. So maybe, and then henchmen, lackeys. Maybe we'd have maybe 2 roguish, maybe 2, I'll call them cultish, like light. It's not really like cultists. Like aberrations, like and then 1 Darrow. This could be someone kidnapped from the Eldritch world, for lack of a better phrase. Mind Witness. You know, be a Mind Witness. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not bad. Okay. So we have... Let's talk about the party for a second. What we're working on the short version is just getting the actual NPCs, and also we were kind of thinking of like the story behind it, basically. So where we are currently, we're at the bottom of this Thieves Guild, beneath this city, and there is some element of this Spellweaver, this person who we think is likely trying to release like an Eldritch BBBEG. BBEG. I got too many letters there. Okay. Now the party, level 9, we have a barbarian fighter, we have a rogue, we have a druid, 2 druids, a paladin, and a sorcerer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all of them. So something else I like to think about is how will the party engage with them, and what are some ways to affect the party? Now, I like the idea, we'll call this interesting mechanics here. Can I grab this window? Maybe like a failed save of some kind. Ways to gain advantage. I think if they can like maybe free or convince the Darrow lackey, could be interesting. What other ways could they get an advantage here or interact in some meaningful way? What were the things in here? Wall of Fire and Ice Storm. Okay. What else would be interesting? Now, I think I have a pretty, solid grasp on like where this could go. You know, we have maybe the Spellweaver, Big Bad, who's either the noble or maybe the noble's there talking to the Spellweaver. We have maybe 2 roguish characters, maybe a couple of cultists, maybe the Mind Witness is present, and then this Darrow, maybe. And then a few interesting mechanics. Question then becomes, where does the party go from this encounter? Does it solve the mystery? Like, do they foil the plan? They're successful, and they celebrate for the remainder of the festival? You know, they saved the city, even though it was never really like a meaningful-esque threat? Or does this lead them elsewhere? And like, one of the things I'm trying to avoid is like, we don't want the princesses in another castle kind of effect. You know, where like they go here, they think they've finally solved it and finished it, and it leads to, this next, like, oh, now you got to go to this place and find out more. So like, I really don't want to like pull on their patience, where it's like, how many doors do we have to open to get to the end of this? But on the same token, I really want to build this festival into kind of like a culminating encounter, maybe at the end of the festival, like on the final day of it. They're on day 2. Maybe it's that they think they've solved it and they really haven't, and they start to see breadcrumbs and evidence that there's more happening, and by then that's like the final day. It's like the final encounter. So I need to think about that too. We'll just say, are they successful, or does this lead to a new mission or goal? I think there needs to be like maybe a letter that directs to a bankroller. Maybe it's not a noble, maybe it's another city, like another city that wants to create like unrest or for whatever reason. Yeah, it seems like I think it should be mostly solved. It should feel that way, because this will be like maybe the 6th session, maybe the 7th, that they've been dealing with this storyline of the missing components and stuff. So maybe we just take it from there. I'm trying to think, are there any other like interesting mechanics that we can do? And I don't think there is. Sorry, I got a phone call. Okay. Well, I think we've made some headway. I think the only other thing we need to think about is designing the combat room, which what I've done is I've 3D printed these hexes, and then I bought a bunch of magnets so they stick together like this, So like, and then what we'll do is I also 3D printed these little hexes that will fit. It'll fit in like that, and so those will be like the different tiles. What are the druid subclasses? Spore and Moon are more melee. See if I have those. Only use a sorcerer, maybe rogue, who are against. That's an interesting point. One is Circle of the Moon, and one is like a homebrew kind of ranger-esque version. So we should think of that for like interesting mechanics, like verticality of it. So I'll take this stuff, I'll kind of like fine tune it and think about it, and then I'll get back to you all on maybe where it went. We have our live stream on Friday, our discussion on Friday at 1 o'clock. We'll be talking about some of our latest Critical Role and Worlds Beyond content. I'll update on the session. If you have questions or comments about DMing or D&D, you can join us for that live stream on Friday mornings, or Friday at 1. Other than that, we've been just over an hour. I think we're going to wrap it up, and that'll be it. So thank you all for listening. I'll catch you later. See ya.